it's Jean J here, and today we are going to discuss foreclosures. Should you or shouldn't you? Let's talk. So first we should start off with what is a foreclosure? Well, foreclosure in Canada and other countries probably similarly as well is typically when the homeowner is unable to make payments on many consecutive months. Usually every mortgage lender might have a different policy on that, but usually it's between 3 and 6. And if they have no financial means in order to be able to pay that money back, then the bank will repossess the property and will sell it to make a profit or to be able to at least recover some of the costs that they lost. So without further ado, let's get into the first reason why you should purchase a foreclosure. First is that you are going to save on your initial investment. This is pretty obvious. Most foreclosures usually come at a lower price point than what you would typically pay for a home that is being sold directly from a seller. This might allow you to buy into a neighborhood that you otherwise wouldn't be able to afford. You might be able to get a bit more square footage than you would normally be able to afford. And overall, you might just be able to end up with a great layout and a very unique house that would be at a much higher price point if it wasn't a foreclosure. This can allow you to have a lower mortgage rate and to have a bit more money to spend on being able to do some renovations, some customizing, and to be able to do some, what I'm sure will be much needed repairs on the property. The second reason why you should be purchasing a foreclosure is because it's like buying a house that you can totally customize to fit your needs. When we first walked into our foreclosure 14 months ago, there were a lot of things that went through our minds, like don't get me wrong, but one of them was that the layout was great. And there was going to be so much that we were going to be able to do to make this house our own. It almost felt like we were buying a new house. You know, we weren't feeling guilty about, let's say, ripping down crown moldings that were actually in great condition, but were maybe more of a traditional style. I think many of us have gotten into that situation where we've purchased a newer home or a home that at least has some new remodeling done. And while the renovations are done beautifully or they might be of high quality, they might not be to our taste. So we feel guilty or like we have to live with somebody else's styling preferences because we feel guilty about taking it down or we want to be able to salvage it. So that's a real great benefit to purchasing a foreclosure. Another benefit to purchasing a foreclosure, and this is typically only a benefit if the property is vacant, but providing that there are no liens or that it's not involved in like a court process, usually the possession dates can be quite speedy. So if you're looking at getting into something really quickly, or at least you want to be able to get a quick possession date so you can get working on your foreclosure project, because there aren't sellers who are typically still living in the house like you get with most properties that you're purchasing as opposed to a foreclosure, you might be able to get the property within, a couple of weeks. I know with us, when we purchased our foreclosure on December 26th, we took possession on the 24th of January. Win-win. Okay, now that we've talked a little bit about the positive things of purchasing a foreclosure, let's talk about maybe some of the reasons why you might not want to buy a foreclosure. This list is going to be longer than the first, and the reason why is because with foreclosures, there is a fair more amount of risk than what you'd get purchasing other types of properties. And while the risk can be worth often the reward is worth the risk, there are some scenarios where that might not be the case. So it's really important for you to do your legwork. Here's the first reason why you might not want to purchase a foreclosure. There are going to be a lot of things that you're probably going to have to fix. The word foreclosure in most people's minds sticks out as kind of like a nightmarish situation. I remember when my sister first walked into our house, she said, "Smells like foreclosure." So it is going to there's going to be things that you're going to have to be prepared to repair. There are going to be sometimes holes in the walls, which is the case with us. There are sometimes going to be no appliances because the homeowners might have taken the appliances with them when they left. There might be missing doors. There might be damage to existing structure or to the trim. There's going to be some things that you're going to have to be prepared to fix along the way. And those things might be obvious as soon as you walk through. They might be hidden under the surface. So it's really important as a potential buyer of a foreclosure, that you are prepared for these hidden costs. Sometimes that initial investment that we saved, that initial save that we had on the investment by purchasing a property for less, we're actually going to be spending on things like electrical and plumbing, which are not the shiny, fancy new things like granite countertops and new cabinets and new trim, crown molding. We're going to be purchasing new electrical panels and new toilets and things that are not so bright and shiny, but are equally as important. So sometimes you have to consider that you might save on the initial investment, but spend later on down the road. Another negative thing of purchasing a foreclosure might be if, and I talked earlier that a positive might be that the foreclosure might be vacant, and that means that you might be able to actually get in quicker. The opposite could happen if the homeowner is still living inside the house. Sometimes these repossessions can take a lengthy amount of time, especially if there's a court involved. Depends on what lending institution is being dealt with at the time, or in what stage they are with the foreclosure process. And usually if the seller is still, or not seller, but would be the homeowner, is still living or residing on the property, you might not be able to actually see inside. So you might get some pictures. You might be able to look at the exterior of the property, but they might not permit you to go into the house, or it might be difficult for you to. So that's something to keep in mind as well. It's not going to be like a typical viewing for when you go and look at a house, especially if the homeowners are still there. Every jurisdiction is going to be different, but in some cases, one of the things that can be a negative with a foreclosure, and it kind of ties into some of the things I had mentioned earlier, is that there might be low inventory, high demand. And what that means when those things aren't on par is that there's not a lot of foreclosures to begin with, but there's a lot of people looking at purchasing them. There are a lot of savvy people out there now who are flipping houses, turning them into income or revenue properties, or might be looking at purchasing for themselves, and they're starting to understand the real estate game when it comes to foreclosures. So the important thing to remember with that is that you might not have all the time in the world to be able to do your legwork and make sure that this foreclosure is the right one for you. So you have to be prepared to act quick and make this decision fast. I would request getting a pre-approval for a mortgage, so that way you're not spending a lot of time waiting for the financing to come through, and also have your home inspector on standby. You should never purchase anything without being able to get a proper inspection, and have your inspector at the ready saying, you know, I'm looking for foreclosure. It might happen quick. I need you on a moment's notice. What's the best days that work for you? And try to work around their schedule to make sure that you are able to get this home inspected as quickly as possible. Because if there's multiple offers coming in, the person who's able to act the quickest and be the most competitive is going to get the property. And some people purchase without even doing an inspection. So that is something to consider if it is a really competitive market. The last thing that I wanted to mention for our list of why maybe you should reconsider purchasing a foreclosure is something that's a bit more specific to people who live in condos, or looking at condos or townhouses, anything with the strata or condominium corporation. So with ours, like I said, the turnaround was pretty quick. It was something like 30 days. And even before our condition date, we weren't able to review the condo documents. It's something that the bank doesn't go out of their way to providing for potential buyers. That's why you'll often see a clause that says, for sale, as is, where is, and they really are not joking around when they tell you that. You are purchasing what you see. What you see is what you get. So, you know, a couple of days or a week or 2 weeks after you purchase the property, suddenly something comes up where the city is knocking at your door saying that, you know, you've got a shed or a deck that doesn't comply with the regulations for the city bylaws, or you're having issues with plumbing or electrical. No one's going to come down and help you with that. You knew what you were getting into purchasing a foreclosure, and you were prepared to take on that risk. So when we had purchased ours, we weren't actually able to see our condo docs, like I said, before we actually even got to our condition date, which was pretty risky. But for us, we felt that the benefit way exceeded the risk that we were dealing with. It turned out to be an excellent decision for us because the price that we got into was so incredibly low. Like if I told you, you probably wouldn't believe me. It sat on the market for a year. People didn't want to touch it. It did have higher condo fees. We were already prepared for that. But after we had taken our possession, we actually got slapped with like a $3,500 levy that was due that year because of some exterior work that needed to be done on the condos. And that was quite a shock for us. But at the same time, hence is the way with foreclosures, it could happen. It's just something you have to be prepared for. Well, that's my video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed learning a little bit about foreclosures, considering the pros and cons of this type of property and seeing if it's for you. I know the conclusion of it is you're maybe expecting me to tell you like you should or you shouldn't, but at the end of the day, it's going to be different for everybody. For us, buying a foreclosure was an excellent decision. We knew what we were getting into right from the get-go, and the whole process has been actually really fun. And I'm planning to post some more videos about that in the future. So what do you guys think? Would you or would you not buy a foreclosure? I'm really interested to hear if anyone's got some interesting stories about their experience. Include it in the comments below. And please subscribe to my channel so that you can watch more videos about foreclosure, about culture, art, and the community, especially as things start opening up. And I will talk a lot more about the city that I love, which is Edmonton, Alberta. Bye!